Who do you go to?
Did you get the information I sent you about AmeriCorps?
On the rough boys.
Okay, so that should be helpful because they actually have people at our disposal to help us put together programs. You do know that,
No, that's.
If you, I don't know how can we, I guess I can tell on social media, but,
I've also been approached by,
We are live, just so everyone's aware there, even though we haven't officially started yet.
that's fine. Somebody else may want the information, I don't mind.
I was gonna say, one of the associations we belong to, also handles, some of the made contact us asking if we want to participate.
Yeah, thank you.
It's called Michigan, I think it's from Michigan Economic Development Corp. In Lansing. And last year I applied to it and asked for somebody we didn't get, but it just got a thing again.
But we no longer have to wait.
Follow up.
That was the purpose. I mean, this was Obama's right-hand guy that's been waiting for our community and others like ours to ask. They're making all this stuff readily available to us.
I'm gonna get with you and we'll follow up on it.
Yes. I wish I had the placement. I'd get them in here. A whole lot of stuff around here. Won't be long. Take a little time, yeah. Oh, Lord.
How's it going?
I saw her today, she was supposed to be coming.
It may or may not. Scheduled, but we usually just take care of it.
I do have some agendas, if anyone from the public wants them. Unfortunately, they didn't all print the second week. Some of them have, well,
It would be 45 minutes, it would be 2 hours. So it really depends on what's on the agenda.
Yeah.
Or if you get like different questions, I mean, it's just public comments, but if you have like 5, and then no.
Hello.
This one is.
Yeah. So, how many times do you get that?
So I guess I'll give Miss Emma Hall another 2 or 3 minutes.
okay.
Oh, and we had that conversation in this hall too.
Now, I thought you weren't gonna be able to make it. Did your schedule change?
It's
Oh,
fourth,
okay.
moving this meeting back to its fourth Thursday. Yeah.
I personally
If we
have
could
a
have that
conflict with
discussion.
that, but
If we could personally have that discussion, I mean, and she agreed. Ms. Hall,
You have the check for
voice.
that Blue Star 9 that he was talking about?
Show
Yes.
work for me.
thank
And
you.
the majority.
Didn't mean to
You
keep
wanna
the
see it,
folder.
Mark?
Thank you. Do you want to see it?
No, it wasn't on this. It's not on this hard copy. This was.
Gotta leave at 4:45.
Let me double check.
You made it, and we have a forum, so.
Yep, I had said I was gonna give Miss Emma Hall another minute or so.
Yes.
Okay.
Rick?
I guess we probably need to mention that. When we get to the payables listing, if it's not in.
Yeah.
You need a packet? Okay. That might be a short one.
Sure.
So the, workforce housing is not on the agenda, you had asked about that, so I put that.
Okay, I'm not sure if it's the same one that I had, but
Oh, okay.
thank you.
Okay, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. You have a roll call.
Emma Hull. Sam Hudson. Satana Warren.
Present.
Ivy Chandler.
Here.
Emma Kennard.
Present.
Mary Alice Adams.
Present.
Miguel Clark.
Here.
James Childs.
Present.
Okay, so we have a quorum. First thing on our agenda is to review the minutes from March 14, 2024.
Agenda on here.
Anyone wants to make a motion?
It's okay.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We're trying to catch up. Please bear with us for just a second. Mr. Childs, you seconded. Who made the motion, please?
I made the motion,
Thank you, Ms. Adams.
but I guess there are questions because we have something on our.
We have a motion on the table, so you can feel free to discuss.
Okay, I'm looking for the action that we gave to give approval for what we see, what I see, actually, in accounts payable. With the discussions of Project T, as well as,
There shouldn't be anything on accounts payable for Project T.
I guess there was some discussion or something, with the Brownfield plan.
Yeah, that's later on the agenda. Right now, we're doing
Okay.
review of the minutes
Okay,
from
so that'll
March.
be okay,
So if anyone has, we have a motion on the table to approve the minutes. If anyone has any discussion about the minutes.
Would you like to call the question?
Yes, please.
Warren,
Yes.
Chandler,
yes,
Kennard,
Yes.
Adams,
yes,
Clark,
Yes.
Childs.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, next up, we have communications.
I guess I'd also like to mention that I don't have approval of the agenda formally on here, and I would like the board to have the opportunity to review the agenda and see if any changes need to be made.
I would like. I didn't see further discussion for 275 Pipestone. But I guess we will,
We can discuss that either in communications or in member comments.
okay,
275 Pipestone. And that's gonna be in public comments, or which one?
No, it can be in member comments
Member comment.
if member Adams wants to bring it up for discussion.
no, I think what I wanted was to put it in as an action item for our consultants to do whatever investigative work that needed to be done.
We can talk about that now if we want to, if the acting chairperson wants to discuss that now. The reason why it wasn't on the agenda is I don't have much of an update for you.
Right,
That
right,
action
right.
was made last month. It will absolutely be acted upon.
Right.
So we can discuss that further during member comments.
Okay, so can we talk about what is on the agenda, the tool?
Yes, so we're ready to move on to communications.
I have one question, please. When it comes to the roll call and there's, how many times are we allowed to be absent without, at least, making notice that we won't be? Is it three?
I believe Mr. Florian's looking in the board policy. I wanted to say 3 meetings.
For purposes of these bylaws, neglect of duty shall include, but not necessarily limited to, missing 3 or more consecutive regular board meetings without excuse. Or missing 4 or more regular board meetings without excuse in any 12-month period.
So are we on point with all of the?
We do have, Chairperson Hall has missed January, February, and March. I did speak with her today. I thought she was going to be here today. So the board may choose to speak with her and try and figure out why that has been happening, or take a strict guidance to your policy.
Hey, speak up.
There she
okay?
is.
I found her.
You had to pick her up, bring her up still.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Been
Take your time,
missing
take your
you.
time, you made it this far, take your time.
Been
Yes,
missing
that's
you.
not bad.
Miguel, please.
Teaching help you down
Yes.
there. Put that on. I think it might be too low for me. How you doing, Miss Emma? Congratulations. I haven't had any talk with you since you made commissioner.
No, sure have been absent.
Mark,
And it's great to see you.
good to see you here. Good to see you too. Okay. You open?
So Ms. Hall just needs an agenda, got an agenda?
Okay, thank you. Where are we now?
We're on communication.
Good.
Ms. Kennard had asked a question with respect to our bylaws and absences, to which I responded reading from the bylaws. Did that answer your question, Ms. Kennard? Thank you.
What did you tell me? What did you say?
I read the bylaws
Oh,
that
yeah.
talk about being absent consecutively without notice, et cetera.
And without an excuse of sickness.
Correct.
Yes,
Deep.
okay. Now, anything else on communications?
Yes, I have a presentation on the new housing TIF. So you guys have this in your board packet. This is called an old tool with a new use using Brownfield tax increment financing for housing. And that old tool is essentially, we've had this Brownfield statute in place for a number of years, but as of last July, there are amendments that now allow these housing development activities. So that's the purpose of this education. So, first and foremost, just like any brownfield plan, the property has to be a brownfield. And historically, and kind of that more federal definition, national definition is contaminated property, but here in Michigan, that's expanded. That can be blighted, functionally obsolete, owned or under the control of a land bank, a historic resource. Any property that's adjacent to those in a brownfield plan is also eligible. But now we have this housing property, which is new as of July. So the definition to meet housing property is 1 or more units of residential housing to be constructed, rehabbed, or otherwise designed to be a dwelling. 1 or more units of residential housing to be constructed or rehabbed in a mixed-use project. So by definition, we only need 1 unit. However, we do need to demonstrate that there is a housing need, and that can be done a number of ways. There can be a regional housing plan in place that kind of speaks to the need, maybe not specifically to the city, but addresses it from a regional perspective, and you can rely on that data. You may have a master plan in the city. Not all master plans have enough data or details specifically to the housing to have that stand alone. So, we'll kind of get into, if it needs to go before MISTA, they may ask for further detail, but these are some ways that you could demonstrate the housing need. Yes, Ms. Kennard.
Yes, I wanna ask when, so I can stay close to point as to what you're speaking about. You said mixed use. What do
Mixed
you-
use would be, let's say there's a commercial businesses on the first floor, and then the top 2-3 floors are residential apartments. That would be considered mixed use. It has both commercial, retail, and residential components.
Just a moment, are you finished? Yes, I am. She had her hand up. Then you had your hand up. I'm going on like that. Okay.
I'd like to request a copy of the city's brownfield maps or some direction where I can find that, and any inner city areas that are considered brownfields. So I'd like a brownfield map.
So.
We have that?
There is a map in place of properties that are currently in the brownfield plan. It's hard to say, what's a map of all the brownfields in the community, especially with this new expanded definition, because something may not be designated a brownfield now, but if it's put into a brownfield plan, it could be determined that it meets the definition. So there is a map of the existing properties in your brownfield plan, but there's not necessarily a map of every property that could potentially be considered a brownfield.
Okay, but the expanded definition will give us some idea. Blighted, not currently, or cannot currently be used for its intended purpose or something, did you say?
Yep, the functionally obsolete basically means a property that can no longer be used for how it was designed.
Yes, ma'am.
My question would be, thank you, Madam Chair. I may have a little up on some people because I sat as the Economic Development Chair for 8 years. And I've seen it all, heard it all, fought for it all, and now it's here. And I'd like to know if in fact, after fighting for some of the properties that go into the land bank or foreclose with the county, if in fact those properties can be utilized with the brownfield doing the infrastructure, and now that the laws have changed, able to actually do the rehabbing to fix them up, to put them back on the tax roll or up for sale to first home ownership, if in fact that speaks to this. And also, does it speak to the fact of any project that has gained funds from the Michigan Strategic Fund and or a TIF able to utilize brownfield as well?
I'm not sure I quite understand specifically what your questions were. The first I think you were getting at is what are the eligible activities, and that will be coming up next. You're going to notice it's very similar to the eligible activities we talked about last month with the brownfield statute, historically how it's been in place.
Okay, so if we have deemed a property to be a brownfield site or property with a structure and it's owned by someone else and we deemed it to be something that can be within the brownfield plan, those people still have to fill out an application and pay their due diligence of the $500 application fee.
Yes, and I think you're talking about a few different things here, because one is, can a property be considered a brownfield property? The second is having this tool in place of a brownfield plan. And those are two separate things. And so if you or a developer comes and requests that of this board to have a property put into a brownfield plan, that's when you would start using that tax increment, which we'll get into here.
Yeah, but let me ask that question a different way, because I heard you mention that there are properties that are already within the brownfield.
Yes.
Can those properties, are they owned by us? Okay, they're owned by
They're owned by various
Okay,
entities.
so those people, if they decide to do a development, they come forth, they too would have to fill out an application.
Yes, unless they already have an approved application and reimbursement agreement with this board.
Okay. Which means that they've already paid their due diligence of the application fee to be able to be within a brownfield plan.
Yes, if they're already in the plan, that means they already went through that process of submitting the application, yes. So with these housing plans, they need to be approved locally before you would reach out to MISTA for any state support.
No.
Here's a little graphic, why do we need housing incentives? Essentially, right now in today's market, you're almost underwater. If you're a developer, the cost to construct these as opposed to trying to sell them as affordable, attainable housing. So here is a median sold price for Benton Harbor would be $175,000. So that would be the average sale price of a home. This is according to rocketmortgage.com. Here's some metrics over on the right. This data is out of Grand Rapids because that's what I could find. But essentially it says costs for construction range from $295 to $350 per square foot. So, here's a calculate, and that's for your average home, higher if you're, building more luxury homes. But your average 1,500 square foot home, just to pick a metric, times that by 295, that's $442,500. So that's your cost for construction. If the house is selling for $175, you're underwater. So it's extremely difficult for these developers to make money. And that's why these types of incentives were evaluated to try and come up with a tool to help furnish the housing stock, come up with opportunities so that these houses will still be built.
I'm sorry.
So I guess, let me ask this question another way. The properties that the city of Benton Harbor has in their possession were properties obtained from the county that went into foreclosure. And we were hoping that this Brownfield Authority would be that extra incentive to do the remodeling, rehabbing these homes to get them back on the market to first home ownership purchasers. Do I stand corrected to say that this Brownfield can't do that, or we can?
I don't think the Brownfield Authority is, that's not their mission to do the actual rehab work. But can you think creatively about what tools are in place to help that happen?
No, I don't want to get these confused. We would not do that, but we would make the decision for that to be done. But that work would be contracted out to somebody else.
So anything that you're paying for directly would have to be an eligible activity,
Exactly.
and we're getting there.
Okay.
So,
I just want to make sure I'm.
So first, why do we need these incentives? I think it's a pretty common question. If you're a developer, why would you need an incentive to make this work? If you're coming with this project, don't you have the funds to make this work? So we are seeing that many projects nowadays are layering incentives. The costs for construction now are significantly higher than they were 3 or 4 years ago. Interest rates are significantly higher. So these are tools. This Brownfield plan is one tool. There are other tools. Sometimes one tool is used, sometimes multiple tools are used. It's going to depend on the project, the specific metrics. So as this board, you would want to be asking those questions, why is this tool needed? Show us how you've done your pro forma, that's your metrics of what you need to make this project work. So we've got some examples on the right-hand side here, the Commercial Rehab Act, Neighborhood Enterprise Zones, OPRA. These are things that have been in place, and now we have this housing brownfield TIF, residential housing exemption, and attainable housing exemption. And they all have a little bit different nuances to them. Some are more appropriate for smaller projects. There's different things. But essentially, we know that the housing stock that exists today is getting older. So, that's kind of dilapidating and not being upkept. We know that there is a significant need right now. MISTA has stated that there's $75,000 units are needed in the next 5 years statewide. And there's significant need across the state for various different types of housing. Attainable housing, middle housing, multifamily, single family. So in general, that's a need. If a housing plan comes before this board, you would want to make sure you're taking a look at your local need.
Are you finished? All right. Next, we have-
So here's our eligible activities we've been wondering about. What can this Brownfield statute, if you have a housing Brownfield plan, what can it pay for? So you're gonna notice this is very similar to what we went through last month. We have EAGLE or department-specific activities. Sometimes we think of these as more of our true environmental costs. We have our background due diligence reporting and assessment documents. That's that phase 1 and phase 2 environmental site assessments. So that historical context, what's been here over time. We might need to do physical groundwater or soil sampling through a phase 2. If there's contamination found when a property is purchased, that property owner would want to prepare what's called a baseline environmental activity, a BEA assessment. And that affords liability protection and then due care documentation. Sometimes a property owner may not be liable. They don't have to pay to clean it up, but they still have due care responsibilities. They can't make it worse. They can't expose the people on their property. So there might be certain responsibilities there. We also have demolition, lead, and asbestos abatement. And I will say, not specific to housing, but it was a change when these new housing amendments came in place in July, was that asbestos, lead, mold abatement, and demolition up to $250,000 could be statutorily approved for both local and state funding. Typically, if we're only looking at local millages, it can just go before the local jurisdiction. And if you want to capture state millages, it needs to go before a state entity. So if you have an environmental plan, that would go to EAGLE. We call that an Act 381 work plan. If you have more public infrastructure costs, that might go to the MEDC. And now if you have housing, that would go to MISTA, the Michigan State Housing Development Authority. So also, like we've had before, preparation of the Brownfield plan and work plan and implementation of those costs are all included. With the housing, they have increased that implementation cost because there is some tracking of the income qualified that is also now required.
I get that last, I'm sorry. That last part again.
They've increased what is allowable by statute for those implementation costs. If the authority is kind of tracking this Brownfield plan, you do the disbursements, making sure their eligible costs are being reimbursed. For the housing ones, there's another layer of tracking, making sure that income qualified portion stays income qualified during that period. That could be done by the authority. It can be done by a private consultant. So the way that tracking is done, there's flexibility.
But whose income? Whose income is, are you saying income eligible? When you say income eligible, whose income?
So, right here on this slide, when we're talking about the tax increment financing, one of the new housing activity, we've kind of had our traditional eligible activities, those still apply, but we do now have some other housing specific development activities. So for income qualified households, those below 120% of the area median income, there's additional eligible activities. Rental rehab, temporary household relocation for income qualified households, acquiring blighted or obsolete rental units to rehab, and construction financing gaps for homes of income qualified households.
Madam Chair. Just very quickly, and we're still talking about just reimbursable
Yes,
activity.
absolutely. So this tool is the same where those costs would be paid for upfront and they'd be reimbursed as taxes are received, so over a period of time up to 30 years. We still would have that period for the, 5 years for the Brownfield Authority to capture into their local Brownfield revolving fund that helps to create a more sustainable program for this board.
Okay, other questions, concerns?
Not right now.
So for the MISTA housing subsidy calculation, there's specific formulas that MISTA has in place and guidance that they've released of how we can calculate that to be put into a brownfield plan. But it allows for a potential rent loss for multifamily properties and a potential development loss for single family. Essentially, we're talking about, what's that difference in what it costs to construct these properties and what you can actually charge for the rent if you want to maintain these affordable housing rates, but there's going to be a cost difference. So it allows for reimbursement of some of that loss. There's a total housing subsidy, and then there's other housing eligible activities. The city of Benton Harbor is already a core community, so site preparation activities, public infrastructure costs. Other communities can't get those approved without state approval, but since the city of Benton Harbor is what's called a core community, those can automatically be put into your brownfield plans. But with the housing now, it allows those activities as well. This bottom bullet point is kind of what I was talking about, that increase in the implementation costs. So costs for tracking and reporting data and plan compliance, and cost to implement, monitor, and maintain compliance with the income and price monitoring has now been increased to $50,000. Yes.
Am I understanding correctly that a developer who includes, you said attainable, but let's say affordable, who includes affordable housing, then has access to a greater level of reimbursement?
Potentially. So yes, that's what these brownfield plans allow, additional eligible activities that we did not have before these new amendments came in place. So just like your traditional brownfield plans, they still would need to come before the Brownfield Authority and have this board recommend the plan for approval, and they still would need to go to the City Commission for approval.
And I only asked because I was reading through the Project T that does include attainable housing. Okay, yeah, I'm done.
Okay, thank you.
So essentially, this is going through what's allowable by statute. And then this board and the City Commission would decide, what meets our housing needs, what are we looking for to support.
Commissioner?
And that brings my question as to income levels. One of these days, we're going to get it right, in the right ballpark figure, because with one organization, I'm seeing 24, in another organization, it's just all over the place, even with our master plan and all that. I don't even think that the minimum income of the residents of Benton Harbor is probably under 24. And if we're lucky, it's probably, let me see, out of the percentage of 98% African Americans, probably 5% that's over 24. I don't know.
So the need here is great, and that's why these tools are in place. And, and each board gets to evaluate what's the right tool to support a specific project. So, here's a slide on area median income. This is specific to Berrien County as a whole, not just the city. But the median household in Berrien County for a one-person household is $54,600. For a family of 4, it's 78,000. And that missing middle is essentially people at the 80 to 120% area median income. So that would be the 43,680 to 65,520. So essentially, this is the target audience that these programs are supporting, below that 120% AMI.
You know, I just gotta say this, cause it's sad, I've sit down here and I had, you know, city, assessors come before us, and I see these young guys, I mean, for years out, you know, shooting grades and stuff like that, and I mean, trying to get our schools incorporated and some type of training to teach the lower ones on the totem pole how to do these things for as long as they've been in the community and to no avail, to get the training so that that income level can move. So I'm not making any excuses or anything, but we have to deal with the reality of what actually is. That's all.
So as we've already mentioned, the Brownfield plan would need to be approved locally. So first by this board, it would be recommended for approval. And then if the city commission decides to, it would be formally adopted at a city commission meeting. So locally, that allows for the capture of those local millages and any statutorily eligible. There's a few things that you can use state funding for without seeking state approval. But essentially, most of these plans we're seeing do require state approval because the metrics just don't work without that. And if that's the case, beyond the city commission's approval, they would also go to the Michigan State Housing Development Authority for their approval.
Have we gone after any grants? Any of those Justice $40 yet? Have you seen any?
I would respectfully ask that maybe we talk about that at a different time in the agenda, because it
Well,
feels a little off
just has-
topic.
It just has a lot to do with what we're discussing now. I mean, yeah, okay.
So essentially, most of these projects that come forward, if they're of merit, you know, they have a funding gap, and that's why we're asked to develop this. Did you have a question, Alex?
Actually, I wanted to make a comment.
Sure.
Just as a reminder, recall when we were getting ready to go out for search, and I talked about the importance of the tax increment financing as a tool. I want to emphasize it's one tool. We have a number of others, the neighborhood enterprise zone, for example, the federal opportunity zone. There are a number of different tools like that can be some combined, some used separately, depending on the different situation. And along with that also there has to be an evaluation of what exactly it is you're trying to accomplish in a particular project. Because the trade-off as you do tax increment financing is what's the value of what you're getting in terms of what you're trying to achieve compared to what you may lose in terms of captured increment that will not be going to the school district or to the city. So there's a balancing act that has to take place in all of this. The city has entered into an agreement with University of Michigan Taubman College for a couple of their expert professors to work with us in looking at all of the alternatives available to us, such as neighborhood enterprise zone and these others, and also looking at the lots that we have and whatnot, and seeing how we might best package, promote, and develop housing. Because as I've said to them, as I've said to everybody, this city would like to have 1,000 new homes built here within the next house people if they come here and want to work. And we've got to use whatever we have to make that happen. So it's good to see the interest, but you won't solve it all here at one meeting.
Based upon that, what he was saying, and I was sitting here listening, I've been absent for a while, what I'm saying could be completely completely out of order, but I want to remind us that this Brownfield work for the city of Benton Harbor and all the housing and things that he said that we do need, really need them really bad. But we do have to work with the city's plan. We just cannot be autonomy. We are not autonomy. So whatever the city has in plan, we don't want to work against it. We have to work with it because it must be approved by the city. And I was thinking seriously of appointing a couple of the Brownfield Authority members that's really excited about doing some housing and really want to get up to speed to work with the city in conjunction as to what we need here with housing, because the city has got a plan. And we don't want to work against the plan, we want to work with the plan. And if we can see any other things that we can do outside of that and bring to the city to help spirit this, because there's money there, plenty of money outside of the Brownfield, as he very well knows. There's plenty of money now out there for housing, for everything else that we need to do. So if we can get this done, we're not working against it, we're working together. So hopefully we can all do this. Okay.
That sounds great.
Well, hopefully we could appoint some people to work, just so we won't have to do this at the meeting.
Yeah.
We can find out what's going on, what's out there, what we need to do, how we need to do this. And they can bring it back and say, oh, we got a handle on this. We're working with the city to do this. We're not autonomy. So don't say we're gonna buy some property and we're gonna develop it.
Oh, no.
Can't do that. Okay.
So bear with me, I got 2 slides left.
Move on.
We're close, we're close.
Move on.
So, you know, some of this is in the weeds a little bit, but, you know, as a board, if you're approving a plan, you need to understand a certain level of what it is you're approving. So bear with me a little bit, we're close. So for state taxes available for principal residents exempted, there could be 3 mills. And the reason for that is there's 6 mills in the state education tax, but 3 mills always go to the state's Brownfield Redevelopment Fund. So there would be 3 mills available and then 21 mills, which is that 24 minus the 3 for non-PRE. MISHA has indicated that they will be generous in their approvals for infrastructure and gap costs if they see it in there and it meets statute and the locals have determined that's a need, then they're likely to approve that. A community has to have a Brownfield authority in place, which you do. And they have to have a public benefit, so that's important. Not every project that comes before the authority is gonna be a right fit. So part of it is determine, is there a public benefit? And then there should be a development and reimbursement agreement in place, like you do for all your Brownfield plans, but with the housing ones, there may be some other considerations. There is that income qualifying we've already alluded to, some monitoring of that. The duration for how long that is should be consistent with the Brownfield plan. And for the for sale housing, that monitoring piece is in place through the first sale. And then for rental properties, that's through the duration of the tax increment capture. So there are some potential challenges with tax increment financing projects. There's limited TIF on homesteaded PRE property. There's financing construction with a TIF reimbursement that could go out past 30 years. There's, this is one tool. So we're gonna evaluate if this one tool makes sense, but it's not necessarily a end all be all right fit for every project. And it may be one piece of the project. They may need this tool and some other incentives layered in there. Scale, when is the juice worth the squeeze? There's a level of effort to putting these plans together, to going through the approvals, to the monitoring. So, while the definition says 1 residential unit, is the benefit there for those small scales? The boards, each local jurisdiction, this authority board and the city commission, as well as MISHA, if it went for state approval, would need to determine if it's worth it for that project. As with any TIF, it's a reimbursement, so there is delayed to getting those costs back through the tax increment. And we made it. Here's my contact information if you have any further questions.
I just like I would like to just say, to follow up on something that this, Chairwoman Ho mentioned, and there was a reason for the changes along with this Justice 40 initiative, because for far too long, and I'm not saying that this body makes any decisions on its own and runs and operates without it having to go. I mean, I've seen it happen though, go out that door without it going before this commission over in the other room, well, this room, in the wrong place. But for a long time, we've had activists lobbying in Washington for what has happened. Because for far too long, we've been crying and begging for some things to happen in our communities, which is exactly why the federal government is making it possible through brownfields and everything else for other organizations like nonprofits to get involved. And there's funding available. I'm not only following the money, but I'm in touch with some professional EPA brownfield specialists that are showing me where the money is and where we need to apply. And I'm not the only one that should know all this because I don't get paid for it. But other nonprofit organizations that I'm working closely with are. And I just think that we need to know that and stay abreast of what's going on, not just here in this meeting.
Commissioner, Ms. Chandler.
That's interesting. Where do we get this information? How does the city get that information?
Google,
Is that,
get involved. I share it all the time.
but I mean, if it's the state that's providing and the EPA and all of these different entities that's providing this information, don't they have a means of getting it to the local municipalities?
When we advertise meetings, people need to show up.
I get a good deal of it through emails on a daily
Yeah.
basis, just
Okay.
about. And if the representatives of the group that's gonna get more involved with us I'll begin to meet with you regularly and share it and try to educate you and have Professor Sharon Har and Gabriel Hart from the university also work with you in terms of helping you understand how it all works.
That's exactly right. You have to build coalitions. The money is there, but you gotta build coalition. We have trips set up for you to go to the conferences. You find out when you go to Washington DC, you network with these people, they can tell you who got the money, how you can get it, where it is. You can bring it back, work with the city, tell them it's good to travel, to go to find out what's going on. Cause it's up there.
Why? When you guys, this board paid for us so many trips.
What happened to it?
And now we have training in the community and nobody to train because everybody's going astray. No, who's gonna build these homes? Who's going to buy these homes when we don't even have a workforce?
Well, you gotta go find out how we can get that workforce done. But anyway, let's move on. Let's move on. Was you finished?
Yes, ma'am.
You-
So that's all I have for communications. Did you want to add anything, Mark?
Not to make light of it, but I absolutely love the when is the juice worth the squeeze? You know, it seems trite, it seems trivial, but sometimes we spend a lot of time dealing in some minutia that really isn't making making the city or making the residents any benefit. And when is the juice worth the squeeze? I think that's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next. Treasury report.
I think we have public comment.
We have a couple of comments.
Public comment is next on the
Public
agenda.
comments, that's right. I said a couple of comments. Sorry, public comments. Do we have any public comments? State your name and address and step to the podium, please, with your public comments.
So, hello, my name is Keena King, and I'm here today just learning more about possible funding opportunities with Brownfield. I own a couple properties within Benton Harbor, and I was already in conversation with Teresa, and I wanted to be on the agenda today, but because of the time capacity, and I was told that someone else was already on the agenda for today's meeting. I'm seeking to be on the meeting for next month's meeting. I would like to present a opportunity for a couple properties that I own within the Ben Harbor community to see if I can get assistance with Brownfield with supporting some of those renovations that need to happen in order to try to support and have job possible opportunities to come to this community. And so I have been a part of this community. I've done a lot of work within this community. One of the questions that I do have, when you guys talk about like the tools, right, that is used when you are considering the reimbursement that will happen over a 30-year, possibly a 30-year period, who determines which tools that will be used with once an application is submitted, right? And if it is declared that that's something that someone will support, if you're talking about like over 30-year, that 30-year reimbursement, who determines that?
Just, Teresa, can you speak with her, you and Mark, get with her and work out those, what she's talking about, and then bring it back to the Brownfield?
Yeah,
And
so
you
I
know
would
the
like to make
process.
one point of clarification. When you and I spoke, it was last Friday. So I had mentioned that the board packets had already gone out. So I did supply Ms. King with the current application. We also talked about, she was here last month, so she heard the board discussion that the application may be revised. So I sent her the current application, which doesn't talk about housing, which her project may have. So we talked about, she's welcome to fill out that current one now, but the board packets had already gone out. So there may be a possibility to add it as a late agenda, but they had already gone out, so that may not be likely. And there may be benefit in waiting if the board chooses to revise the application.
Absolutely, in that, yes, and that there was already someone that was on the agenda for.
But we could have
for-
multiple projects. So I may have
That-
mentioned there was a housing one in here, but that wouldn't stop another application.
Right,
What I'm saying to you is that you are, as our consultant, take all of her information and know what she can and cannot do, if it's feasible, if it's in the pack, what she needs to do, and where she goes from there. And you can make that recommendation to the board as a consultant to us.
Yes,
She
and so
don't necessarily have to come to us all the time stating what she wants, because that's what you're there to work these parameters out for us.
absolutely. And we've started that discussion. I did recommend to her that if, even though she wasn't on the agenda this month, she was welcome to
Yes.
speak during public comment. So the board at least had awareness that she is interested and likely would be on
Yeah.
a
yeah,
subsequent
and
agenda.
that was shared, and I wanted to come today
Okay,
for
good.
just to hear the
Yes.
second part of the presentation that was,
Know
yes.
that you can come, but still,
yes.
we want you to come, but she has to get all the parameters and things worked out. for
Absolutely.
us.
So I wanted to hear the second piece of the presentation
Okay, great.
that from the previous meeting. So as
Very
I'm
good.
going to preparing to ensure that the work that I'm wanting to do is in alignment to what actually needs to happen, right? And then just like what Mr. Little was just talking about, like these the additional things I'm not aware of. So that's another reason why coming to this space, right? And as you're referencing that's something that Teresa is aware of, and if it's should it be a part of the presentation, because this is just like one piece of it. And if there's other funding opportunities, shouldn't that be layered in with the current presentation?
Just,
Well, yeah, my question is, she's asking where she can get this information for other tools you can use to support your development. And I was wondering, wouldn't that be at the developer's onus? I mean, does the developer come knowing what they're asking for? Or Is that what we do? Say, okay, here's what you should use to get this done, and here's what you should use to get that done? Is that on us to do?
Madam Chair.
So I'm a little confused because I thought we had this conversation last month and I thought that we had kind of said, speak with Teresa and that you could.
Yes, absolutely, and I'm fine with speaking with Teresa. I think me and Teresa have already have that established, but just after like hearing the presentation and just hearing of the additional information, that's why, and it was open for public comment. So I'm clearly with understanding that the application needs to be filed and processed, and also the $500 fee. I'm fully aware of that, and Teresa has communicated that with me, and also just the willingness to look at the application. So yeah.
So,
You,
I don't know.
are you finished?
I hope he's about to answer the question.
Okay.
I just want to ask if we're giving Teresa, our consultant, permission to have an hour or two. Are we paying for that outside of this meeting?
She is our consultant. The time that she spends working with anything that deals with Brownfield, she gets paid for it.
Okay,
That's all.
so my question becomes, because it should have been with this right here, something that we should do every now and then for this whole community, that they may learn of their Brownfield.
Yes,
I'm just saying,
okay, let's get this straight. We definitely want you to build and do all you can in this city of Benton Harbor. We want to support you, to help you do what you need to do here, because it's room for everybody. But the Brownfield is here, and we have a consultant that speaks for the Brownfield, and they bring it back to us. We're not working against you, we're trying to work for you. But we cannot work outside of the act, which is 381. There have been some new changes, and some new changes going on. They might be too numerous, I don't understand all of them, but Teresa has got it, they understand it. Mark had it, but he's getting ready to retire. I'm sure Mr. Lillis probably knows a little bit about it. Miss Adams been here for years and years. She knows a lot about it. But right now, it's all new. Some of these new phases and acts that's going on, it's all new to us. So wherever you can fit in, based upon what the city wants, because it's their Brownfield. It does not belong to us. We're not autonomous. We want to help you to do everything you need to do in this city of Benton Harbor. If we can help you do it, and it's within the Act of 381, we'll be glad to help you. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark had it.
Madam Chair, I don't want to belabor the point, but just to try and directly answer Ms. King's question. She asked a question about the 30 years and who determines whether it's 30 years. Ms. King, that's pretty much a mathematical determination. It depends on how much investment occurs at the property. The greater the investment, the shorter the time period that you get reimbursed. And the opposite is obviously true as well. A smaller taxable investment means it's going to take a lot longer for you to get reimbursed for any eligible expenses. The second part of your question was the other tools. This authority, as Madam Chair just mentioned, can only deal with Act 381, which is the Brownfield Redevelopment Financing Act. The other tools, I think, that you're becoming a little bit perhaps confused about or looking at as an opportunity are those that Mr. Little was referring to.
Yes.
So anything outside of Brownfield, I would encourage you to go directly to Mr. Little or his department, and they could guide you in that regard.
That's what you direct him to.
Thank you.
They only stay within the Act.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. Keep coming.
Yeah, so thank you, Mark, for that, but that was a question of, and so I don't think it was more confusion, just trying to understand. Once Mr. Little was talking, does that layer into, or is that a part of? So thank you.
Those tools can layer. They
Yes,
can layer.
yes, so yeah, just more of an understanding, so thank you.
Very good.
Didn't we have that before where they wanted to cut it down to 15 years sometime? Remember when Mr. Williams said we needed to do that on some?
Yes.
Very good, thank you. Okay. Public comments. You still on public comments?
If I might, I'd like to.
As a public comment?
Okay, I was gonna have my new staff member introduce herself to you.
New staff member?
Member Chair.
Hi, my name is Deb Chubb. I'm the CDBG manager now for the city of Benton Harbor. So,
You the what?
for the city of Benton Harbor, the Community Development Block Grant Manager.
Oh, good,
Really?
good.
Thanks, very happy to be here.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Deb, what was your last name?
Chubb, CHUBB.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. No public comments, this portion, public comments are closed. Now we're on the committee reports. No committees? Next, treasury reports.
Would you like me to take this?
Yes, please.
All right, Madam Chair, if I may, I'd like to direct you to the financial reports from Plant Moran for the month ending March. It's on page 15 of your agenda packet, would be the balance sheet. Again, this is as of March 31st, and I direct you to the column on the right-hand side. You have cash in checking and savings of a little over $995,600. You have current liabilities of about $145,000, to be more specific, $144,621. You'll see that a little bit farther down in that same column. So you're in a very healthy balance sheet situation. If you turn the page 16, you'll see your income statement. Right-hand column, year-to-date income is a little over almost $330,000. Almost $330,000. You have total expenses of just under $260,000. That gives you a net income of just over $70,000 for the year. And we're approaching year end here in another 2 months. So you're in a great income situation, a great cash situation. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have with respect to those the income statement and balance sheet, to the extent I'm capable.
Commissioner Adams?
I guess I'm gonna go back to the Fidelity Building. And I thought that we would be seeing zero because it would be going directly to the city and not stopping here for us to disperse to the cities. That one and any others that we may be finished completely paying off.
I'd be happy to answer that question, Madam Chair. The Fidelity Building, Benton Harbor, City of Benton Harbor is the beneficiary of that. We continue to capture tax increment revenues from that particular property and use it to reimburse the city for their expenses. The city originally had just under $256,000 worth of eligible expenses, and we've reimbursed all but $4,835.88. So with the next tax capture cycle, the city will have been fully reimbursed, and you will be utilizing that capture to either deposit in your local remediation revolving fund, or you will stop the capture altogether. And I'm sorry, was there a second question too?
I think there was, but I forgot. Mine just went blank, so it must not have been there.
You said that any other properties that were completed.
Are there?
Not in this cycle. We have completed many properties in previous tax capture cycles, but in this cycle, none of them are falling off what I consider to be falling off the tax capture roll.
Okay, but I think we had this conversation once before, and we were gonna make a list of those that were completed to have on one.
And I have that,
Okay.
and I'm looking at that on my screen at this very moment. I'd be happy to provide you with a copy of that.
Please?
Certainly.
Because I think we have some that are learning still, including me.
And actually, I will, I'll make that available to all members in your packet next month.
That'd be good. Any other questions? Hearing none? We need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Need a second?
Second.
The motion and second. Any other questions, concerns? Hearing none, roll call.
Warren,
Yes.
Chandler,
Yes.
Kennard,
Yes.
Adams,
Yes.
Childs,
Yes.
Hull.
Oh, yes.
Madam Chair,
Motion carries, Madam Chair.
are we finished with finance? I had one question I needed to ask, and I think I sent an email. It came to me. There was a conference, a small conference coming up. Do we still have funds available that we budgeted in for travel?
You can do that in your comments.
Okay. Well, I think this is coming up soon.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that line item on here,
No,
our budget? No?
we're going to do payable listings.
Okay. Thank you.
Madam Chair and members, I'd like to summarize the payables listing for you, but rather than refer specifically to your page 17 in your packets, I'd like you to refer to the screen a little bit because page 17 is a little bit incomplete. However, on the screen before you, you have all the same numbers indicated with the sum on the right-hand column. For example, you've got the first three charges for March advisory services from both Fishbeck as well as Landmark. And you have Plant Moran's financial statement preparation as well. That gives $3,976.50. And then you have the list of what we're going to go into here in a few minutes. I'm not asking for your approval of anything other than $3,976.50 at this very moment, but I want you to understand what is before you. In previous meetings, Ms. Warren in particular requested, because she's one of the signatories, that this payables listing reflect all of the tax increment capture and disbursements that are being made, so that when you are signing off on those checks, the three of you who are signatories, you can look at the check and you can see where it falls, where it was approved, and you're not just signing something that's willy-nilly. But what I will show you is at the very bottom of this list, it has Blue Star 9, and it has a charge of $19,164.46. Not a charge, but that's a disbursement that we're asking for your approval of here today. I'm going to point this out. I'm going to take just a minute and ask you to refer back to your page 15, which is your balance sheet.
Can you send us a copy of this?
Yeah, because I can't really see.
Certainly, I can send you a copy of that, no problem. On page 15, you have the balance sheet, and about the very first line on the right-hand column has a charge of $17,912.69. That's what you've been capturing and accruing, waiting for the developer to step forward and provide you with the appropriate documentation. The developer has now done that. So, Blue Star, and they've provided with documentation for additional expenditures as well. So when you see that $19,000 figure, you see that it reflects this $17,912 that we have accrued. So we're releasing that accrual because they've now provided the appropriate documentation.
So why are there two different names?
I don't
though?
see that on here. I don't see 19,000.
There are two different names.
Right.
It's
Well,
very-
I see Blue
It's not
Star.
on your sheet.
Oh,
Blue
Blue
Star
Stars.
is-
Okay, that's the one I can't see.
Right, Blue Star is on your sheet,
It's on
And
yours
then
too.
this-
Oh, it's on the other side.
but on the page refers back to 15 is Main Prairie Kirsch.
It's correct. Prairie is the overarching entity, if you will, that all these Blue Star LLCs are under.
Okay,
That's correct.
okay.
And Kirsch, just frame of reference, is the building's original developer, original owner. Years ago, it was Kirsch Carton Company. So we call it Kirsch, so we can tell you which building it is.
One and the same though.
Yes.
And why an additional amount to the
Because
17?
this payables listing got prepared, and I'm sorry, the one that before you got prepared before we had the final numbers calculated. And we wanted to get you at least your packets, your agenda packets last week as opposed to first part of this week, so you at least have time to go through some of the other items.
Yeah, because it's totally different. Here it's saying 98,000.
It is totally different. You're absolutely correct. Well, no,
The 98 is
That's-
Blue Star 14,
that's.
so that's a different
Here
project.
you go. Scroll down. There it is.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay? So I know that's confusing for everybody, and
Yes,
and we
it is.
apologize that it's coming in kind of late like this, but
Okay. This was the total amount, the 98,000, and is this their last payment? Because we've been paying.
No,
for
the
stuff.
98,000 is a different project.
Where?
98,000.
Oh, okay. So this one here, with,
I apologize.
what project is
doesn't
this? Can you
have
send us that
the-
information? The one for the 19,000, send us that development agreement, please.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And I can tell you when you approved that as well. Matter of
Thank
fact, I can put that on the screen if you'd,
Here you go.
if you care to see it.
If we can see
Might
it.
take me just a moment.
Go ahead, leave the
I
glass.
can't see it. You can't see it.
Just email it, Mark.
Okay,
Yeah, just email it.
very good.
As well as this one here that's on 17. The former canal prop, wait a minute.
Yeah, the updated payables listing, we can make sure that goes out.
Okay.
Mark, with this new, in 381 and all the new upgrades, did they, upgrade the investment of how much you can give the, developer? Is it 10% of investment or what percentage of that?
No, there were no
No
updates in that regard.
How much do they get?
They can receive 100% of their eligible expenses.
With their receipt.
If it's been approved in the Brownfield plan
Yes,
and the
100%.
development and
Yeah.
reimbursement agreement.
And if
Yes.
they put in 500,000, they get 500,000 back? No, a percentage of that.
If the 500,000 was all eligible expense, they can get all of that back.
Or eligible expenses of the development, yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's no percentage.
Not by statute.
No.
Not by statute.
So
Okay.
once again, Madam Chair and Ms. Warren, right now, at this very moment, we're looking for approval only of these three
Yeah.
checks right here at the top of the page for $3,976.50. And those are on the payables listing you have.
okay.
Any other questions? Any other questions?
I think go forward personally, it's fine to send the agenda out, but we can get that email separate. So if you get this ready and our meeting is on like a Thursday, even if it's ready on Tuesday, I'm okay getting that page separate. I don't know about everyone else, but I would be fine.
Right, that way you have it ahead of the meeting.
Wait a minute. It comes to you at a separate time than the agenda is actually.
No, in this
It's
particular
usually
case,
pretty close, trying to get all those financial statements, and that's why the Plant Moran one for March isn't actually on this agenda, because we got that after the packet went out. The one that's on here is from January that wasn't approved, so it's real close. So we try to get you all the information we can, and what I believe I hear Ms. Warren saying is, if there's an update to the packet, even if the packet has gone out, can we please receive that ahead of the
Email it.
meeting?
Yes, thank you.
It's when we moved the meeting date to the second Tuesday,
That's what we need to do.
it really hamstrings our ability to get some of this financial stuff done in time to get it out to
I think we need to talk
you.
about that.
So
We
we'll,
did, and I let them know that it was your suggestion too for us to move back to our fourth Thursday. Yeah, because it worked for the majority of us.
we'll get that taken care of, Ms. Warren.
Yes.
Was that a motion?
No, not yet. We'll do that at the end. You put the motion out, we'll work on it. Okay,
Okay, we'll talk about that at the end.
yes.
Okay.
But yours is okay.
Yes.
Took care of you. But you're okay. 17.
We need a motion to approve the payables.
Motion to approve. We need a second.
Support.
Any other concerns, discussions?
I didn't catch the motion.
Adams,
Yes.
Adams was support, correct?
Chandler,
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Motion. to
Adams
approve.
Motion to
motion,
approve.
you supported.
No. Mrs. Hull
Okay.
motioned and she supported.
She's recalling it because she's the chair.
Can the
Motion
chair
to
make a
approve.
motion?
I'll make a motion.
Yes.
Support.
Thank you.
I said we need a motion to approve.
Oh, okay, I thought you put up.
We
I
need
think
a
it's tough for you. You ought to be sitting over here.
Yes. We need a
Go
motion.
ahead,
to
call.
We'll do a roll call vote. Warren,
Thank you.
Yes.
Chandler,
Yes.
Adams,
Yes.
Hull,
Yes.
Kennard,
Yes.
Childs.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. All right, now old business.
First up is the project application. Last month, this was on the agenda as well. The old application, one mentions that applicants should communicate with Mark Florian, and now with, he's retiring and Fishbeck being your new financial advisor, the new proposed application updates that contact information to myself, as well as with the new housing amendments to the Brownfield Act, it includes some questions about housing. Now, not every project is going to have housing, and just because they fill out an application doesn't mean you have to approve it, but it just asks those questions so that if that does apply to the project, you would have that information when the project is initially evaluated. So last month when this was presented, the board felt like they needed more time to think about this. So now you've had it for a month, it's back on the agenda if you'd like to consider updating to the revised application.
Did we include a question about strategies to avoid involuntary displacement or gentrification?
There is a question about will it cause any displacement? And if they answer yes, then as the advisor, when I'm talking with them about the application, I would get a little bit more information about what that means and why and how's that being handled. And that would be presented as part of the application, yes.
Okay, so we would suggest that they address those issues.
Absolutely.
We don't see,
Agenda?
we don't,
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
thank you, Madam Chair. We don't see the initial application, but we do see the development agreement. That's a question. 'Cause I can't
I guess
remember.
that's a policy and procedure statement. I assumed the board saw the
You've all-
application.
You
I
have
think we
seen
do
all
see the
applications.
application as well. Okay,
Yes.
Okay, I don't remember, it's been so long since one.
So there is one, as the first item of new business. So these applications would be filled out. This is why when Ms. King reached out right now, I sent her the current application, even though it sounds like she may have some housing elements until a revised version is approved. This is the current application that this board uses.
Okay, so we need approval for it?
I mean, it's technically administrative, but I mean, I think that would be a best practice. That way you have it in your minutes that you've documented revising the application.
you want to do approval, then you make a motion. You need a motion if you want to keep that aboard.
Make a motion that we approve
Need a second?
the update of the Brownfield Authority application.
Second.
Motion and second. Are there any other questions, discussions?
I will just say the $500 fee was kept the same. That was with the current application.
Okay.
Hearing none, roll call.
We use this.
Warren,
Yes.
Adams,
Yes.
Chandler.
Yes.
Hull,
Yes.
Kennard,
Yes.
Childs.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. New business. Project application team.
So a project application was submitted by the Project T Benton Harbor LLC, which is developer of the Project T in partnership with the Harbor Habitat for Humanity. I will say that there's been some this project has been around for a while. I'm sure all of you at least have heard of the name. There's been a community outreach events and meetings with the city. As far as the Brownfield ask, this is the first time the project is formally coming before the board. So there have been some attempts to have meetings the city has been trying to set up, and those haven't been happened yet. So there has been some discussion whether it is ready to come before the Brownfield board. And because of such, it was understood that it might be pulled from the agenda. And so the developer is not here. However, they have asked if I could call them during the meeting. They could speak over speakerphone to present the project.
Anyway, could I ask if Mr. Little has information about this project?
I do.
Absolutely.
Because I've heard about it
Yes.
and I've seen some, what do you think about it?
Well, it initially, as it was put together, it was a good project, and I think still is, but it's going to probably require some modification in terms of what is being proposed. This project began almost 2 years ago between the city and Harbor Habitat. And Harbor Habitat then formed a joint venture with Redevelopment out of Detroit. One of the problems we've kind of run into now is that the way they've been kind of doing things, I mean, if there are changes taking place, I need to be notified as what's going on. I will not settle for something just being pushed in and I have no idea what's going on. But in any event, make a long story short, this project initially consisted of about $1 million appropriate money, about $2.5 million funded through MISTA, and that initially was the funding for carrying this project out. It was submitted to MISTA that way. It was approved that way. I understood, and I'm sure they did too, that the open piece was possible environmental issues that might come up that might require something additional. And I think also we recognize that prices have been going up through the time period, so there could be a need for some supplemental financing or whatnot. And it would be probably consistent with this is the right tool to help assist that. But my initial review of the draft that was submitted had some items in it that I had some real concerns about. And what I want to try to avoid, and that's the reason I come and spend time at these meetings, I don't want to have us in a situation where you're presented with something that I know that I'm not going to support when it goes into commission. I want to get it worked out here on the front end and make sure that the stuff goes right. Because we want the project, we want the housing, we want the developers to make a reasonable and fair return. But at the same time, I am painfully aware that when we start talking about this tax capture process, this is no free money. That's coming out of what the city would be receiving in terms of property taxes and also what the school district would be receiving. So we want to make sure that it's fair and reasonable for everybody.
So how does the board feel? Would you like me to call the developer, or what's your feelings on that?
They need to come and answer some questions.
Well,
Go ahead.
yeah, I defer to the city because I would like to know what are your concerns so that we can then address the developer with, are you addressing these concerns? I wouldn't know how to vote if it came up for a vote right now.
So just to be clear, right now, there's nothing up for vote. The project application has been submitted. I will say that they indicated that a check was mailed to the city. I checked with here when I got here and they didn't have it, but I don't know if someone else at the city received it. So it would be accepting the project application, which means initially you're supportive of the project and potentially seeking Brownfield support. My understanding is that the developer has prepared a Brownfield application. So if the way the agenda was written was, possibly you could direct Fishbeck to review the application, but respectful of Alex and the city, whether they feel we're ready for that yet. So no action needs to be taken at this time. It's a general introduction.
We have,
I would like to just add that, usually when developers, we usually get a copy of their check, the deposit check in the packet. I would like to add, well, some have in the past, I've seen a couple, and I think that it should be that way. As a past elected official and past co-chair of economic development, this project came before me. But prior to that, even with the property that it sits on, and it was held in the county, I mean, they should have taken care of all those environmental issues because there was an issue then with them doing their due diligence. Because Benton Harbor didn't want the property, but some of us actually fought for it because I think that it should have been the home of a new city hall. But I speak to this young lady when I see her at Habitat Resort, and she tells me that everything is fine, good, and all set to go. And yet we're here today, and I'm just.
One point of clarification, if I may, there's a project and there's all of what goes into a project, right? So potential brownfield support is one part of it. You spoke to environmental cleanup, all the different partnerships are working through environmental cleanup. There is an Eagle funding that is helping assess the property. So that is currently ongoing. All what is being presented here in the application is potential support through a brownfield plan.
Is any of this falling on the county's brownfield? But what I can't figure out is that if all systems were go and this project is breaking ground, and the question was asked during their presentation in the beginning if they would be using our brownfield, and the answer was no. But I know things change.
So that's a question for the development
Exactly.
team. So I know they
they
were planning on being here. It was their understanding that it would not be on the agenda, and that's why they did not make the trip.
Okay.
And they had requested if I could call them during the meeting, but that would be a question for the development team.
Okay.
So if I'm understanding correctly, we don't know where the check is. We don't have the official brownfield application yet.
You absolutely have the application. It's in your packet. The check could be a matter of me taking over. I don't know how Mark has handled that in the past. I asked them whether they mailed it to me or to City Hall. They said City Hall. So I figured I would get it when I got here, and I checked with Tiffany Moore. She hadn't seen anything.
Because I'm just wondering, is it possible for them to attend the next meeting?
Absolutely, based on my communication with them, that
Is
they
it
were
even
planning
time?
on being here today. The reason why they didn't make the trip is because they thought it wasn't going to be on the agenda.
Is this their application?
It says page 33.
Commissioner.
Oh, I see. I'm finished, thank you.
So is it even time for them to come forward? If what we're doing
The beginning.
is supporting the city's plan, right? And Mr. Little says he has concerns about that plan.
Absolutely.
Is it even time for them to come? I mean, nothing we do can go forward unless the commission approves it, right? The city is not ready to recommend it. Is it time for the developer?
And I would recommend that we simply hold it and give us time to resolve these issues, and they can bring it up the next meeting.
I concur.
I concur.
Yes.
It would be nice to have them here in person.
When the time?
They come all the time.
Oh.
Yeah.
We must still
Not here.
understand. Oh, I'm so sorry. Commissioner
Okay.
Kennard.
I was certain. But I'd like to ask, who is the name of the developer?
Project T Benton Harbor LLC is the entity that has submitted the project application. It's my understanding that is a partnership between Renovare and Harbor Habitat for Humanity.
Okay, and the person's name that is leading this is Jill.
Yes, she is the contact who filled out the application. So the application is in your board packet. And again, this is the old application because that's what was approved at the time, so that's what she filled out.
Yes.
You finished?
I'm finished.
Okay, thank you.
I have another quick question.
Commission.
So, Mr. Little, you're saying it's things that you want to help adjust, right? So what is that process? Will you look through the current application and then discuss that, or do you discuss it with Teresa and she lets them know?
Actually, I'm sure that I'll be having direct communication with them.
Okay.
And just to give an example, there was something like $5.8 million for recovery costs on rents. I just have questions about it, and I need to get some answers before we do anything with it.
I didn't understand that. Can you repeat that, please?
$5.8 million, I mean, the original project was 1 million in plus, and then 2.5. Now, there's a request that has 5.8 million in it, recovery of rental costs over a period of time because of low income rents.
So this project may not be moving at all, huh?
We'll work it out.
Yeah.
So I would say keep in mind a couple of things. One, is this project as a whole something that both the city and the Brownfield Authority want to support? Does it help you meet that housing need? If you want to be supportive of the project, that doesn't necessarily mean you approve the Brownfield plan, but it means you're invested enough to consider it, to ask those questions. And Alex said, maybe we come to the table with those, what is actually the need? Show us that through your pro forma so that when a plan, if and when a Brownfield plan is formally considered by this board, you have those questions answered. So I'm guessing you don't have enough information at this point in time, but if you have any specific questions that you would like me to ask the development team, please let me know and I'll make sure we get those answers for you.
I've been gone for a while, but this is what I do not like to see or want to see. We take our lead from the city. This is the City of Benton Harbor's Brownfield Redevelopment Authority. If they enter into agreement with someone, the city brings it to us, not the 3 or 4 people that they enter into the agreement with. Habitat, the other person, they cannot come. I would not like to see them come to us saying something other than what comes from the city and expecting us to deal with them on an individual basis. The basis that we deal with comes from the city after they have worked it out because they have decided that they wanted to go in agreement with these other entities. And if they are not in agreement with them, that's their fight, it's not ours. We want the final plan of what the city brings to us.
Okay, but the project application would be individual developers come to the,
individual.
right?
Once-
Isn't
once
that
the
how the
city
reach
says-
out
yes.
Once the
works?
city said it's okay to do that.
Madam Chair, if I may, I think that Miss Teresa knows very well that.
But I'm getting it clear myself. I'm not thinking about what Mr. Teresa knows. I'm thinking
Okay,
about.
because this is not our authority.
It's not our authority.
Yeah.
And she knows.
It's certainly not my authority. This is a public authority board and you're asking all the right questions to do the will in line with the city's desires.
Because Mark usually keeps us straight. That's what this development, and you are doing it too, but you knew. And I have to get to know how you coming from them or making sure, and I'm sure they've been here. I have not. So, you're doing a good job. I'm not saying you're not. But I'm just saying to get it straight with me, so it won't be all over the place. It comes from from Mr. Little to Mark, and Mark comes to us with something final.
Well, I don't think, Mr. Little, you would fill out project
No, we're not
applications,
talking about
correct?
project applications. We're talking
City
about,
manager.
he's sitting there with some information. We're talking about the total package of what if we agree to do it, then whatever the guts of it is, let it be that. That's you, that's him, that's whoever. But I'm saying, yes, we're gonna do this project. He hasn't said that yet. Have you?
No.
And actually, all I'm saying, I'll say again, we want the project.
Yes.
We've been working on this project for
Well, see, I
all
haven't
the
been
years
here.
better, but
Teresa, I haven't
we
been
want
here.
to make sure in the final analysis, the
That's
city is getting what it was expected to
Right.
get, that the developer is getting a fair return, and that the city is getting a fair return and being treated right.
So all that other stuff, you work out those parameters. That's all I'm saying, because I didn't understand that.
So this is just the project application, which is my understanding is current procedures that an
Right.
applicant would fill out the application with the $500 check for that
Yes.
initial reach out to the Brownfield Authority. Does it sound like there's things that the Brownfield Authority could support, and if so, be placed on the agenda? And that's where we're at right now.
Okay,
This
good.
project is a little different than probably most that come where there already has been, longstanding involvement with the city.
Very different,
I don't understand it.
very different.
I'll get more information, and I haven't been up to date on it, so.
Well, just as an aside, additional information, projects like this, they don't just start and instantly pop up. They gotta go through the
Right,
planning
right,
commission,
right.
site approval. There's a long process that goes on. And it normally should just move and flow through fairly smoothly. But it can't just suddenly pop up surprises with an
Exactly.
assumption that everybody's gonna say yes.
Told something else.
And
I'd
then,
like to just say, Madam Chair, that
okay,
when this initial project came before me as co-chair, I was ecstatically happy. I mean, if it's not gonna be a new city hall with our new big fire trucks, then let it be housing, because we need it throughout the city. And I've supported it as a city commissioner, and I still support it. But there's a process, and everybody is going to have to follow it. And I have some questions, and I'm sure our other colleagues does as well, for them to come before us and answer them, as every other developer.
I'm thinking, if the city is saying the project right now is at a standstill, are we still supposed to work with these other entities to make sure that they still keep going? I just wanna know, if the city is not pleased with what's happening right now, until they can backtrack and put it in order, the way that the city wants it, do we still continue to work until the city says a go or not a go? I don't know. How does that work?
Madam Chair, I think
Yes.
what I'm hearing from all of you is that the short answer to that is no.
Right.
You're not going to take any action on this. You're going to
Absolutely.
hold it, and you're going to sit on this application until such time that the city gets things
Absolutely.
worked out to Mr. Little's satisfaction.
Okay.
And then perhaps Mr. Little can then advise Teresa that it's
Absolutely.
back on the table and
Which also means not cashing a check yet, correct? If we haven't
Exactly.
accepted the
That's what I'm
application.
saying.
That's why we don't
But I
have it.
I am still involved in some meetings.
We can't just keep going and going and going. And
Exactly.
he has not gave us a
So-
recommendation to do that. And they still doing the application and telling you what they need to do and do this. I think we need to wait till he say go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My question would be, and that's what I asked in the beginning, because this would have been the first stop. The Brownfield Authority for the development. I mean, and that's where I tried to guide them when they came before Planned Economic Development. But then we're here. Something going on.
At the initial time, there would have been nothing that you could do for them
Right.
except the ground environmental review as far as the site.
Yeah.
And at that point, they had no information to support a need for environmental.
Okay.
Can I just ask a question for clarity? So the whole recovery rent, that's basically what we were talking about in your presentation, the new piece of the Brownfield, right? So what I'm not understanding is, where is that on this chart? Shouldn't that be on here in the 26 million that they're?
Well, that would be in the Brownfield plan, and there's no Brownfield plan that's officially being considered
I
yet.
see, so later they would have put that in their plan.
Yes.
Gotcha, okay.
And let me get this a little clear. Until Mr. Little works this out, we are at a standstill to say, we'll just wait until we get the go to continue with them, whatever we need to do.
So am I hearing you correctly that you would like Mr. Little's recommendation of when it's appropriate to put it back on the agenda?
No. Yes and no, but I am still saying, if these other entities come to you, we want to do this, we want to do that, we want to do this, you should say, well, we're going to put this on hold till we hear from the city. Mr. Little, because he has not worked it out yet, what he wants or what they want. And then they can come back once he gives a go to say, okay, this is what we're going to do, we're ready to go, we're ready to move forward with this. But if they can go and do without him, they're just doing what they need to do without the city. So he's not pleased with some things that's going on. We are the city's Brownfield Authority. So if he's not pleased, he's in this with them, and he's not pleased with what's going on, he's gotta let us know. And if he wants to get out of it, then they can come to us as a unit with the city.
And the city's not going to make any unreasonable
Things, they're gonna bring it back, yes.
We want housing,
Absolutely.
and we want the developer to
But
be
they gotta come
successful, but they gotta come right, they gotta come correct.
So just to be clear, my role is not to speak for or against projects. I can advise you on if they have merit, if they're in line with statute. I can maybe help you consider some questions you should be asking. I can certainly speak to if something is requested that is not in line with statute.
Absolutely.
But absolutely, I'll be in communication with Mr. Little. I know he has, I believe, some meetings set up with the development team, or at least is in the process of doing that. So that will be had before we come back to this board.
That's the way I see it. Thank you. All right. I'm gonna close up the book. Next
We're keeping
meeting.
you all night.
Oh, yes.
Would you like me to take this next one?
Whatever, number 2.
Sure.
Winter 2024 tax disbursement. The city's finance director recently issued a check to this authority in the amount of $106,692.01. That was for the winter tax capture. We believe that this check reflects a $22,523.97 overpayment. What they did is they captured tax revenue on the Corwell building, the new Corwell facility down here on the corner of Colfax and Main. And I think they did so incorrectly. And I don't want to get us in a situation like we were about a year ago when they captured on the very same property, gave us the money, we cashed the money, and then they came back to us after the fact and said, oh, they're a non-taxable entity, we need to take that money back. So we're going to remove that $22,523.97 from the city's check. We're going to give it back to the city until they get this thing worked out.
So,
However, what we would like to be able to do is request your authorization to disperse $42,708.86 in accordance with various reimbursement agreements that you have to the developers that are listed on the second page of your agenda. You'll see the amounts going to each developer and the total sum, as I stated, of $42,708.86. Once again, you'll see one of those numbers has an asterisk by it, and that's the one that I was talking about earlier, where we are also releasing an amount that we've been holding in reserve until the developers step forward with the appropriate documentation, and they've since done that. As a matter of fact, you approved that back on at your February meeting.
I make a motion to approve, but I have a question.
Motion to approve by Adams,
Second.
second by Childs.
Any other discussions, questions, concerns?
The property in question here for the 22,523.97 for the Corwell building.
Yes, ma'am.
So it's in non-profit status?
That is our
Which means that
understanding.
they don't pay taxes?
That is correct.
Oh, wow.
Not to get in the weeds, but it's a little more complicated. You capture taxes based on the ad valorem taxes, the property tax. But some business entities also pay a personal property tax for the machinery and equipment that they might have in that building. In this particular case, that's what they captured. they captured based on personal property that was supposedly still in that building. So I think what might have happened is when Corwell took over ownership, they failed to file the appropriate paperwork with the county saying that we no longer, this equipment no longer exists. It's not here, it's gone.
Okay.
And
that
so
equipment, the ex-equipment
the county
was
automatically
taxed, okay.
continued to capture.
What about the other one taxes?
Your property tax,
Yeah, that's what they're taxing.
that's what, in this case, they captured personal property.
Yeah.
So we have a motion by Adams, seconded by Childs.
Any other questions? Roll call.
Warren,
Yes.
Hull,
Yes.
Childs,
Yes.
Kennard,
Yes.
Adams,
Yes.
motion carries.
Okay, next,
Madam Chair and members, moving on to item number 3, local remediation revolving fund deposits. From that winter tax capture, we're requesting your authorization to deposit a total of $59,371.87 in what we consider to be excess local tax capture into your local remediation revolving fund. Recall, you have the ability, once you've reimbursed a developer, the amount that he's authorized to get and that you've approved, you continue to capture for a period of up to 5 more years, and you take those monies and you deposit them in your local remediation revolving fund, where you can do other things that are allowed in Act 381. We put this on your agenda every tax cycle so that there's a paper trail, Ms. Kennard, that shows that we took this excess money that we didn't give a developer and we deposited it into your account, so that you can always look back and see exactly how much was deposited from every one of these disbursements that you get from the city. So we're asking for your official authorization to make that deposit.
need a motion.
I so move.
Support.
Motion and second. Are there any questions?
Was that Adams
Yes.
for support?
Yeah, I'm going down here further. You haven't gotten to that yet?
Which one?
Down further under local remediation, I'm looking at,
Are there any questions on the motion?
well, we only discussed the 59,000. Or did I sit here and fall asleep? Because I'm looking at contribution agreement with Cornerstone Alliance involving 120.
That's all built into that 50.
It's those numbers are built into that $59,000 figure. Once again, Ms. Adams, and this stems all the way back to Ms. Kennard's requests
Okay.
of years ago. When we take that excess funds, we're telling you that some of that $59,000, in this particular case, $449.34, is going to reimburse you for that contribution that you made to Cornerstone.
Yeah.
And then some of the others for the other expenditures that you've made in the past. So remember, when you take money out of your revolving fund,
Right.
in most instances, it's like you're making a loan, a non-interest loan to an entity, and you're using the tax increment capture process to reimburse yourself. And so that's what we're showing here, is the reimbursement that's occurring to you for those previous contributions.
Okay, but I'm looking at this El Rico site.
Yep.
I made a motion, didn't I?
Yes, ma'am.
It's a motion on the floor. We got to have a question on the motion.
Oh, we,
Okay, any other? Roll call.
Hull,
Yes.
Childs,
Yes.
Kennard,
yes,
Adams,
yes.
Warren,
Yes.
motion carries. And Madam Chair, if I indulge me for a moment, if you would, please, just to finalize her thought. She's asking about El Rico. This authority did the same thing years ago. We funded an assessment of the El Rico
It was
site.
an assessment,
And
okay.
now you're
Okay.
getting reambused for those upfront expenditures,
And that was long before
long before,
no mow.
way before.
Okay. Yeah. Sometimes I need a refreshment.
Thank you.
Oh, we all do. Thank you.
You're next.
Number 4?
So this is the third reimbursement request and the fourth determination for the 353 West Main site, which is part of the former Ship Canal project site. So Prairie Real Estate has submitted their third reimbursement, and within that, there was some back and forth discussion. There was known with the second disbursement that some of the costs that the subcontractor had, fertilizer, topsoil, some of those things were not eligible permit fees. So similar to this, there were, out of the submitted costs, a few that were not eligible for reimbursement in line with statute, but consistent, staff is recommending that the board approves $26,065.50, and that is in line with the Brownfield plan and their reimbursement agreement. So to date, total eligible expenses approved are $153,709.80, which, so potentially there's up to about $56,000 still eligible for reimbursement. And then with this submission, it's within that. So Fishbeck determines $26,065.50 of the requested $29,837.50 to be eligible for reimbursement.
Motion to approve.
With a second?
Second.
A motion and second, are there any other questions? Commissioner?
I take it that Fishbeck has done his due diligence, has gotten the receipts that it needed for.
Absolutely. So am I correct that this motion approves these costs
Approved.
and authorizes disbursement?
Once it passes,
Once
once
we
it
go,
go to the vote.
that was just a question.
I'm just trying to understand the motion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Concerns? All right, hearing none, roll call.
Warren,
Yes.
Adams,
Yes.
Hall,
Yes,
Kennard,
Yes.
Childs.
Yes.
Motion passes.
thank you.
That is it on item number 4.
We're down to member comments, Madam Chair.
Yes, that's what we're on. Member comments. Okay, member comments. You want to start, Commissioner?
He said no.
Commissioner?
Yes, ma'am, thank you, and thank you everybody for coming. Flyers in. I have, Project Need Foundation along with, Team Solution will be hosting, we'll be hosting a health fair May 15th. And I'll make sure that everyone gets a flyer in regards to environmental injustice. I sent an email and I don't remember, I think I sent it to everybody, including Teresa. There's an event coming up, like a conference in Detroit, I think, that's running a couple of days. Have we figured out how we would take care of a trip if a member or members wanted to attend?
Like we're always taking care of.
Well, no, Ms. O, we used to have Nicole or somebody that made all arrangements.
Yeah, the either Martha make it for you. Well, working will make it for you.
I mean, but how will we, because I think this event is soon. And if I decided that I'm not going, but
Well, we'll
if
have to see
others
who wants to go,
wanted
or
to
vote
go.
on it and see who wants to go, and if we say they go, it's money in the budget for travel, I'm sure.
Yes, ma'am. If it's a related conference.
Yeah, if it's a related conference, yeah.
I wanna go to Manchester Bidwell. That's one way to
So
go.
you have to bring this information,
You wanna go?
commission,
I have to know the time of day.
ask, bring the information so we can see.
I sent it to,
Let them know if
they
want
they have it already, and I'll resend it, but I'm just saying, what
to
process?
go.
Where is it at?
Detroit,
Did she give, who has the
Not far
information?
enough.
Who has the information?
I emailed it to everyone.
What is the
Yeah, I
benefits
got
of
the
Did you
email.
get it, Teresa?
Benefits of it.
Did you get the?
Brownfield,
I
it's.
don't
think-
recall right offhand, but I'm sure I did.
It's a federal, see, and you're not aware that the federal government has done some marvelous things with its brownfield for local communities that's been disenfranchised, or underserved. And I guess we need a process, Teresa, is what I'm asking our consultant, for when these issues come up for travel or conferences or stuff like that, as to how we will pay for ahead of time. Because I remember that we had, those that did, pay for the flight, hotel, and we got a small stipend.
Yeah.
To cover the cost of
Margaret told me how to
food,
do
so.
that. Margaret explained all that.
We were just discussing that a moment ago, that is a need that we have.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
she'll be working on that.
Yeah, she'll
Okay.
take that.
So if someone wants to, I guess they can call you, and I'll make sure you get that information again, if it's a couple of weeks out or so, I don't know.
Well, my suggestion, Madam Chair, would be that let Teresa put together that policy or that document,
That's
and then take it from there, unless you've got something urgent that's in the interim.
And I think it is.
right.
Somebody needs to go,
What is it?
I think it's a couple of weeks out, but we went through this before, Mark, and we put together something. I just don't think it's been followed because we haven't been anywhere.
The only thing that I recall having seen was what Mr. Hudson put together and
Oh,
floated to all of you before he left for his trip.
Nobody voted on that.
And I
Nobody
agree.
voted on none of
I
that.
understand. That was,
that's what it was. Okay, then
we'll let Teresa
Okay.
work on something for
Good
you.
deal.
But please understand, and Ms. Hall conveniently pointed to me when she said Mark would take care of that, or took care of that in the past. I specifically recall, I like the quip, earlier about squeezing stuff. I'm not a travel agent. I'm not your travel agent.
And
So I'm
he
not
said
gonna-
that
I'm not gonna
once before.
She's not your travel agent either.
Exactly.
So
Wait. Hold on.
Thank you.
Hold
So
on.
if y'all
Just a
signing
moment, just a
checks,
moment.
I don't know.
What you used to do, we didn't do it. Whoever sat in that chair did it for us. So now you backing down?
we had Nicole,
Well,
and
Yeah.
she's
She
right.
went
We had
above and
Nicole,
beyond.
we had Chris.
and we had Chris too.
did it too.
So you better find Chris, or she better find Chris, or somebody need to find a secretary.
Maybe she has a corporate person who could jump
They
in.
don't even do that for me, for my personal.
They don't even do it for her.
stuff.
With the Brownfield money.
Lord,
Oh, and so you would have access.
You figure out where you want to go, and we'll figure out how to get you there. How's that?
We can work on the policy and the funding request
Yeah.
document, and then you
So
could bring that before.
if we're willing to book travel ourselves, how do we pay? Is there like that would be the question. So just
Yeah.
say, I can easily book a flight in a hotel, but
Yeah.
how do you pay for it? That's the
Exactly.
question.
because it was all done as a blanket check, and we didn't have that money.
And I'm not doing it again. I do it with other organizations, mixing my money up with theirs, and then they take their time paying me. I'm not doing it.
What I envision Teresa putting together for your review is a request voucher. You want to go to a conference, you can fill it out. What conference?
Okay.
When is it? And what is the cost of the conference? What is the travel cost? And do you need an advance, or do you just want to expense it on your credit card and just put in for reimbursement? Basically, it'll have all that type of stuff on it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And you'll submit that, and the board will approve it,
right,
and away you go.
that'd be good. Okay. And I really encourage you to travel, I really do.
Yeah.
Because you network with people, you learn so much, you can't get it all at this one meeting. And you can't contact people, but when you see people that's trying to do the same thing you're trying to do and work together, try to travel and get the information for yourself. It's not necessarily for the whole board, but for yourself, so you'll have a good idea of what we're trying to do for the community. All right, any other board comments?
I want to say that, I love traveling and getting information, but I'm having surgery on my back on the 24th.
Oh,
So I don't know how I can walk out, he's a specialist, but I don't know how I'm gonna do.
You're gonna
To
do well.
just say
You're gonna
that
do
I'm
just fine.
going to be able to take the trip.
Exactly.
So I don't wanna put myself in that.
Exactly.
No way soon, take it from me,
Yeah.
you're not gonna be able to do it.
But there will be more. There will be more. Yeah.
Uh, Okay, let's,
But I
about
don't know
this
if I
meeting
find
date,
this,
Nicole,
I might
I mean, Teresa. The board, I understand, voted to have the meetings on the second Tuesday. For 25 years, we've been at the second Thursday, at the fourth Thursday. And all my accommodations, everything I got is on the fourth, before that. Now, it's the board's advantage if
I
they
make a
want to change.
motion to
And
go back to
Mark
the fourth.
made it because he needed to have that date for you, right? So do you need it, still need it?
No, ma'am, I do not. After next month,
You know,
do
I
it in June.
evaporate.
You do it when? In March?
I know I'm through next month,
I
May.
make,
Excuse me.
May, okay, you do in May, okay.
I make a motion that we return our Brownfield Authority Board meetings back to every fourth Thursday, 4 o'clock ASAP.
Okay, that's been a motion.
Can we make that motion to be beginning June?
Beginning June.
Beginning June.
Well, I'll have a comment after we have a second, but
Beginning,
Second.
Wait, just a moment. Okay. Now, thank you. It's been motion second. Now we have discussion. Was it?
so
how
I
does
do
that
have
work?
an existing conflict with another Brownfield Authority Board that meets on the fourth Thursday at 3 p.m. So I would not be able to make it at that time. I don't know if there's a different day of the week, if you like that fourth week, if you could do a different day, or if the board really wants to do that and wants to consider
Well,
that
what
I
do you-
wouldn't be the one coming
What
to the
about
meeting.
4:30? Can you make it at 4:30? We could change the time.
Well, those meetings are in Kalamazoo. They usually go from 3 to 5.
3 to 5.
oh Lord, have
What
mercy.
about, is 5 too late?
Well, and then it's an hour drive from me, so
It's gonna be simple. I mean,
But then hey, I guess them questions we forgot to ask during.
Maybe we just leave
and
it.
then for the summer, I've already made my summer schedule, so I would not be able to attend, which you don't need one person.
How long have you
Yeah,
been
Sam
dealing
and I
with these
wouldn't be
people?
able to attend the, later, 5 o'clock either.
Yeah, not the later. Okay. So how long have you been meeting with these? Maybe they could change this. How long?
Yeah, yeah.
A
maybe.
cou-
I mean,
well,
but y'all
our
might get
our
down
firm
to-
has been working with them for at least 6 years,
Oh,
maybe
then
longer
they
than
probably
that.
love y'all enough to change their meeting.
Well, you could ask and just bring it back. We'll leave it on hold for now.
Or what about alternatives? She said that week, a different day. I don't know.
Thursdays work. I mean, my
Thursdays
whole
work.
life has
My
been
whole-
centered
whole
around
day
it for the
has been
last
centered
20.
around
Most of my board meetings are on Thursdays,
My
but a
last
couple are on
24 years
Tuesdays.
have been
Yeah,
centered around
24
that.
years we've had it, and it's just in my mind.
Another
I didn't even
option
think-
is I could see at Fishbeck if there would be another representative other than myself.
Whoever.
No.
But as far as me making meetings on that Thursday, I know I have a standing conflict.
And she's now getting acclimated, so I would hate to.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's just sit on it for now. Let's take the motion off and sit on it and see what we can come up with.
Motion to adjourn.
Yes. If we don't, oh, well, let me say this. I really, really thank the board for being here and holding on and doing what they need to do in my absence as the chair. I know I have faith in all of you, and especially faith in Mr. Little and Mark and the new consultant that we will carry on. So I knew you were in good hands, although I was in the hospital with back surgery. You're gonna not be able to come for a while because it's gonna be serious.
Don't say that.
Well, she can come when she can, but don't think that she's gonna be running out here.
No,
Faith
I
down the
didn't, but
street.
he said I could walk
Faith.
out the same day.
Yeah.
Faith.
But I stayed in the hospital for 2 months.
Yes.
Yeah, so mine's a little bit more severe.
Yeah.
But anyway, we appreciate it because I tell you, anybody that comes to any of
What you
these,
doing with them?
oh, yeah, take them home. But anybody that comes to any of these meetings should be congratulated
Money.
and understand it outside of the commissioners, because it's a given to be here working for the city all these years.
Yeah.
To make sure that you want the betterment of the commission. So we really appreciate everybody that comes out, and really all you did during my absence and it, nothing else. I appreciate all of it. And Mark, no, Teresa, welcome.
Thank you.
I first met her today, and we'll get to know each other and we'll get to talk. But I have to say this publicly. I must say this publicly. Mark, I'm gonna miss you. I really, really, really gonna miss you. We've had good times, we've had bad times. You told me off and I told him off, and we agreed, we disagreed. But we've been here together for 20, he started. And he taught us everything we know and a little bit we don't know. We can still come to him and ask that. He has been a catalyst for this city to move us as far as we have gone now. And I think we've done some good things in this city with his leadership. And I know we're gonna do more with yours, with Mr. Little. We're gonna do more with this Brownfield. But I hate to see you go, and I'm gonna tell you one thing, I don't know where you're going, what you're gonna do, but you're gonna miss us. And you really will.
I'm sure I will. Thank you very much.
Yes,
I'm gonna miss that good looking
Yes.
hairstyle.
yes.
Get out of here.
I'm not gonna shave my head. Do we need a motion for adjournment?
Already did on Ms. Adams made a motion.
I did, but
Don't
you
need
didn't
to
call the
vote.
road. You're not calling the road.
Good.
We don't have to call no roll for no adjournment. Now, Mr. Little, when you get that worked out, you get with her, we're not gonna do that. I think we have to make sure we work that stuff out, because see, congratulations.
Thank you.
How you liking it?
Good. I have to think.
No,